City of Stevens Point Common Council meeting, recorded December 16, 2019.
At 7 o'clock, we will call the regular Common Council meeting of the City of Stevens Point to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Jennings.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Nabel.
Here.
Zarazua.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Slawinski is excused. Kneebone.
Here.
Dugan.
Here.
Dalton.
Here.
Morrow. Here. 9 present, 1 excused.
We do have a quorum. Please join me in standing in our salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much for coming out tonight in what is, I hope, our last council meeting of the year. You never really know.
There's a lot of days left.
I want to keep things brief because we have a lengthy agenda and we have a Council City Hall Christmas party to attend after this. The things I want to talk about, because it's the end of the year, this is typically when many of the city employees think about retiring. And we have 3 very significant employees that are going to be retiring at the end of the year. Betty Malik, who started in the clerk's office, is now the administrative assistant at the Parks Department and has 44 years of service to the city. She's finally turning in her plants, I guess. We were over there today, and Betty has this amazing collection of plants and takes care of every one of them, knows which every one is. And I went into the office today, and there's like 4 plants left. So she's already packing up, but we will definitely miss Betty, and we want to thank her for her service. Next up, at the utility department, we have Rob Molsky, who's going to be retiring, and he has 29 years of service to the city. 29 years Rob's been with us and doing a bang-up job at the utility department. We can't thank him enough for the things he's done. And finally, at the housing authority, Donna Bella, who has had 23 years of service with the city, will also be retiring. I was on the Housing Authority Advisory Board when I first got on council, and Donna was the assistant there. Donna takes care of every single resident to the best of her ability and does her job very, very well. We want to thank all of those people for their service. Combined, I didn't add it up, but we got to be pushing 100 years of service with those 3 people, and the city will be at a loss when they retire, and we want to thank them again for everything that they've done and wish them the very best in whatever retirement chooses to take them. Hopefully they'll do some traveling and taking some me time. That, and because we are very close to the Christmas season, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Kwanzaa, and if none of the above fits you, just have a great Wednesday. So happy holidays to everyone. Be safe, and we'll see you after the new year. Up next, we have item number 3, which is persons who wish to address the mayor and council on a specific agenda item other than a public hearing should register their request at this time. Those who wish to address the common council during a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until the public hearing is declared open by me. Is there anyone wishing to speak on tonight's agenda that has not filled out one of these white slips? Okay, then we will move on to item number 4. Persons who wish to address the mayor and council for up to 3 minutes regarding a non-agenda item. And we will ask you to kindly keep your remarks to that 3-minute limit, please. First up, we have Liz McDonald. Step to the lectern, please. Name and address for the record.
My name is Liz McDonald. I live at 1760 Strongs Avenue. And if I talk really, really slow, I could make this 3 minutes, but I don't think it will be.
You don't have to use it all.
Okay. Like many others, I'm glad to see the new housing coming to the central part of the city. The development that is planned for the intersection of 3rd Street and the east side of Water will be going forward because the city has finalized the sale of the property to the developer within the last few weeks. But unfortunately, that means that a huge elm on that property will be cut down. Based on its size, it's 70 to 100 years old. While the city owned the property, the tree was being treated to avoid it getting Dutch elm disease. As you know, there are very few remaining mature elms in Stevens Point. What a shame to lose this one that had been on city property. My point tonight is not to try to save this tree, but it's to raise awareness and ask that the natural features and resources that we have in the city are taken into consideration and that allowances are made for them when future development is planned in the city. If you haven't ever noticed that tree, you might want to take a little walk over there and just check it out before it's gone. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Alder Dugan, the library liaison update.
Yes, thank you. I am the City Council's liaison to the public library. And I'd like to tell you a few things about what's been going on at the library downtown. There are 4 branches, but our main one here is downtown. It's getting several new physical arrangements. Additional shelving on the first floor is already in place, and it's used for DVDs, graphic novels, and board games. 3 self-check kiosks should be installed next month in January. However, patrons will still be able to check out items at the circulation desk if they like. The circulation desk will be refinished. The current first-floor computer station will be resized and relocated. Indoor security cameras were replaced with new, improved cameras. Computer software was updated and back online now on December 10th. Wi-Fi hotspots are new and can be taken out of the building to be used elsewhere. I'm amazed at all the activities and programs that go on at our Stevens Point Public Library. Just a few of them. In November, Young Adult Services hosted a T-Rex tea party for 101 young people. The Young Adult Services also brought library information and books to new mothers at Ascension Hospital. The UWSP bassoon musicians played a recital in the library. And Wisconsin Public Television held 2 listening sessions for an upcoming show featuring the history of Stevens Point. In December, Santa pays a visit to the library, and patrons will make gingerbread houses at each branch library, not just Stevens Point. November statistics for the downtown branch, 22,604 people entered that library building. Wireless access continues to be highly used. Books, Overdrive, and digital downloads are popular. The Portage County Library has several means of communication, including Facebook and Twitter. So go ahead and find out what's going on down there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And next up, Mary Meyer.
Mary Meyer, 1450 Water Street. Thank you for this opportunity. In my 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about 13 tenants who wanted me to speak on their behalf tonight. They all would like you to remove the wording in the master plan that concerns us and put into the master plan a commitment to Edgewater that won't overly bind you, but with which Edgewater can continue to have a high occupancy. This box represents the 5 apartments that the new senior building will be required to rent to seniors whose income is less than 30% of the AMI. All of the residents I'm mentioning tonight have income below that threshold. Debbie Jakubiak has spinal stenosis, COPD, and atrial fibrillation. Steve Leikness had a stroke and had to move to Edgewater out of necessity. Pamela Hinkle has asthma and PTSD. Mary Bertle has bipolar disorder. Her bad knees and legs bother her after doing just a couple loads of laundry. Lynn Hackstrom has degenerative disc disease. And of course, probably not even 5 Edgewater folk will be able to live at Berkshire if any 5 of the many other area low-income seniors get approved first. Victor DeChant broke his hip now and uses a cane because his left leg doesn't work like the right. Susan Wendland is missing an arm and suffers from depression and anxiety. Leona Martell has a walker. Her legs and arms are so bad that she can't even wash more than a couple of dishes before she has to lie down. Ed Krajewski is 88 years old. He's under a doctor's care for borderline diabetes and sores on his leg. He's on about 10 different medications and is very deaf. Louise Rykowski is 81. She's fortunate not to have any health problems that she knows of. Pat Schrader has had 3 back surgeries, has a cane and a walker, and can walk only very slowly. When she gets enough money, she'd like to get a wheelchair. Bob Hooker had a heart attack, and the bottom chambers of his heart are dead. He has a pacemaker and a defibrillator. Judy Kobach is 78 and has suffered a lot of nervousness through this and the previous 3 struggles to keep Edgewater safe, especially because she has formed deep friendships with several residents, and they are like a family together. Likely, once these 5 apartments are filled, these 8 and many other low-income seniors won't be able to live at Berkshire. These are just the neighbors that I've discovered in the last few weeks are below the lowest income level. This is about affordable housing for seniors, a service which, thanks to you, Edgewater provides 81 units worth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That exhausts our speaker list, and we will move on to the agenda proper. Number 5 is our consent agenda. Are there any alders wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion. Alder Dalton.
We separate out the mayoral appointments.
Mayoral appointments. Okay, we will pull those. Anything else? Then I would be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. President Johnson.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of the mayoral appointments.
Thank you. Seconded by Alder Zarazua. Discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Morrow. Aye. Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
Approved 9-0.
9-0, that is adopted. The mayoral appointments consist of Larry Schroeder, reappointment to the Stevens Point Housing Authority, and Gene Kemeter, reappointment to the City Redevelopment Authority. Alder Dalton, you have the floor.
I'm just wondering if, so this was a redevelopment because there was no further information about these, or maybe I missed the word reappointment in your letter.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm actually looking at this now, and it says mayoral appointments. These are both reappointments of people who have previously held those positions.
Okay, thank you, appreciate
I
that.
apologize for that, and we will make sure that that gets corrected in the future. I still need a motion, though. President Johnson?
Motion to approve the mayoral reappointments.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderperson Morrow. Discussion. Hearing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Bill Phillips. Morrow.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, that is adopted. Item number 6 is an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 10, City Parks, creating Section 10.14 and amending Section 10.16. Alderpersons, what are your wishes? Alder Dalton?
Motion to approve the ordinance amendment.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderperson Nabel. Discussion. Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, that is adopted. Item number 7 is also an ordinance amendment for Chapter 10 regarding the city parks, amending Section 10.01 Sub 2. Alder Kneebone.
Move approval.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderperson Jennings. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, that is adopted. Item number 8 is an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 19 of the Electrical Code, amending that code. Alder Morrow.
Make a movement to approve the ordinance, Chapter 19 of the Electrical Code.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderperson Nabel. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
9-0.
That also is adopted. Number 9 is an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 3, the officials, boards, and employees, creating Section 3.56, the Administrative Appeals Board. City Attorney Beveridge, did you have any comments? Or should we open up the floor first?
I think we can open up the floor first, and I can respond if needed.
We'll go with Alder Jennings. I saw her first. Alder Dalton, I'm sorry.
Back when this first came, thank you, Mayor. When this first came forward, our city attorney stated the purpose of this is to avail the city of its ability to opt out of the statutory chapter by creating our own process. He continued on to say that this was adapted directly from what works for the city of Madison. As I have suggested before, that is incorrect. The Administrative Review Board in Madison, which might hear appeals for things like snow removal, is the same thing as the Common Council Executive Committee, which is appointed by the President of Council. When something like snow removal or grass is challenged in the city of Madison, basically what they do is, even before it's challenged, from the Director of Building and Zoning, quote, "We ticket and prosecute until they get into compliance." He went on to say that the owner would have to fight the ticket in municipal court. So the information that, as background information for this, I disagree with the accuracy of the information. This issue did not emerge out of the needs of community development, to my understanding. And for alders who in the past have opposed additional layers of government, this appears to be an additional layer of government. But my main argument with this is it will create unintended consequences in terms of undermining ordinance enforcement, and that's why I object to it. We should also strive for balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, and giving more power to the mayor to appoint people who may be interested in ordinance enforcement or undermining that enforcement creates a political situation that is not helpful to us. I promote that we fix the underlying problems, not create a new layer of problems through this measure. And how people are appointed to commissions and committees and boards, before the mayor once again reiterates that council has the final decision on this, I just want to, for the benefit of the public, let you understand how this actually works. So the mayor will recommend someone. There may be zero information. Typically, there's zero information in our packet about this person. And there's 11 of us. And whether or not we thoroughly had the opportunity to investigate that particular appointment, we are probably not going to be have the same mind of it. And we can't talk about these things outside of actual public meetings. And is this the battle we want to pick? Of all the battles that we need to pick every month, is rejecting a mayoral appointment the one that we're going to work on? And typically no, but just to finalize my comments, just two fairly recent examples. Alder Dalton had pointed out, I think it was 2 months ago, questioning an appointment that Alder Dalton saw as a conflict of interest. At the same time that that person was being appointed, President Johnson said that there was also someone applying who was equally or more qualified. But the person who received the appointment was already on county board, already serving on other city functions, and the person who was wanting to get involved in government was passed over. I'll bring us back to one other example regarding the BPSSC. The mayor made an appointment of someone who had already quit BPAC. I raised questions about that, and council proceeded to approve that appointment, and that person subsequently quit BPSSC, creating a delay in the next appointment. So in sum, the idea that council gets the final word is sort of in theory. The council makes an appointment, or the mayor makes an appointment, council says yay or nay, but let's say they said nay. Well, it goes back to the mayor. The mayor gets to make another decision. It comes back to council. The council could say no, it goes back to the mayor. So that's only sort of a theoretical statement because it ultimately always goes back to the mayor in terms of the appointment. So those are my comments, and I will be voting no on this, and I will, after other comments are made, I'd like to make a motion.
Alder Dalton.
I was going to start by making a motion, so I'll just put that on the floor first. Amending in section 5, basically the composition of the board to consist of 2 members of the public and 3 members of the common council.
Okay, so you have a motion to amend the composition regarding the member makeup. You are proposing we change it to 2 members of the public, 3 members of the council.
Correct.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? Seconded by President Johnson. Discussion only on the amendment. Alder Nabel, sorry.
On this amendment,
Only this amendment, yes.
section of it,
Correct.
I have a comment about the whole thing, so.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the proposed amendment? President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alder Jennings, and for the information. And again, this is about the amendment specifically. I appreciate the amendment, Alder Dalton. Originally, I thought that, having the public more involved, and maybe I had rose-colored glasses on, because I want the public to be more involved. The public is involved by virtue of their vote and their confidence in us. And I think having a board, a commission, whatever this happens to be, it's our duty to take care of this. And so I've changed my position after some consideration, talking to other folks in other communities.
Okay.
So I appreciate the opportunity to reconsider.
Thank you. Alder Dugan, about the amendment only.
Well, it's not the amendment, it's the whole.
Okay, then we will hold your comments till afterwards.
Okay.
Any other discussion regarding the amendment proposed? Okay, if you are in favor of the amendment, and again, I'll restate, and Alder Dalton, correct me if I'm wrong, you are amending to change the makeup to consist of 2 citizen members and 3 alderpersons. If you are in favor of that motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed, you will vote no, and we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Nay.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
8-1 passes.
8-1, the amendment passes. So now we are discussing the ordinance change as amended. Alder Dugan, you had some comments about the whole.
Yeah, I thought back a couple of decades, because I've watched the city council for probably that much time, sometimes writing about it. And I recall a couple of conflicts of interest, in my opinion, which we're trying to avoid here. One was a realtor who was on Plan Commission and was quite excited when something became available for the realtors and voted that way. Another was a mayor who confided to me that he was appointing someone who was against historic preservation to the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission, and it wasn't, none of these involved our current mayor. But there are things that can happen as a result of mayoral appointments and the continuation of those people in those jobs. So I actually am, I can't see any solution to that except perhaps allowing more older people on the commission, and that's why I voted for the amendment.
Thank you, Alder Nabel, and then we'll go back to Alder Jennings, who wanted to make a motion.
I'm frustrated I wasn't able to say this before a motion was made, because My point, I think, is very valid. And one of the things that we do on this council is educate. At least that's how I feel is important that we're doing. And when we have public meetings that are being taped, people hear about these ordinance violations and they learn about them. And we're taking away a big component of the way of educating that we have, of getting the news out there to people that are watching when they aren't aware that there's not allowed to leave things on the curb for 24 hours. They're not allowed to do certain things. And I think we're taking away a big portion of why we on the Common Council are doing this job, and how important it is to have the consistency that needs to be there, the people that know the ordinances, that we have the input, that we have learned the ordinances enough to know what the intentions were for those. And so I'm really upset that we're even going in this direction. I still think it should be on the council as a committee.
And Alderperson, the amendment changed nothing in that regard. If you are against the ordinance in any way, shape, or form, you simply vote no. If the visibility is a concern of yours, we can easily record those meetings as well. We record other meetings that aren't council meetings, so we could do that. But that aside, Alder Jennings, you had some a motion?
Well, I was going to motion to reject this. However, the vote will do that in and of itself, correct?
Yes. If someone makes a motion to either approve or reject, that vote will then decide what happens.
Okay. I move to reject the ordinance amendment, Chapter 3, officials, boards, and employees.
Okay, and seconded by Alderperson Nabel.
Mayor, if I may make some comments, please.
Absolutely. Attorney Beveridge.
Based on the nature of this conversation and the other ones we've had about this, I feel like I must have done a bad job of trying to explain to everybody what this does. So I'm going to try again. If you open up the statutes, the state law that we are governed by, whether or not we wish to be, there's a chapter called Chapter 68, and it is, I'll read some sections to it directly so you understand exactly where I'm coming from. It's titled Municipal Administrative Procedure. And it says under legislative purpose, the very first section, the purpose of this chapter is to afford a constitutionally sufficient, fair, and orderly administrative procedure and review in connection with determinations by municipal authorities which involve constitutionally protected rights of specific persons which are entitled to due process protection under the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. As it stands right now, we are governed by that chapter. And it has a whole bunch of procedure. It says, first part, review of administrative determinations. Any person having a substantial interest that is adversely affected by an administrative determination of a governing body, board, commission, committee, agency, officer, or employee of a municipality or agent acting on behalf of such can file an appeal. That can be for any determination by any employee, just about. Obviously, we usually see these property maintenance violations. It could be the grant or denial of a dog license. It could be the grant or denial of a building permit. It could be any number of things. And currently, if somebody files an appeal of that sort and says, I want to avail myself of my Chapter 68 rights, it puts us in a really awkward position because we have to look at, well, what has occurred thus far with regards to this person's grievance or whatever it is whatever determination that had been made with regards to them. We have to look at what process that had occurred by, some of which could just be an informal review of, a form that somebody used to apply for something. You don't meet this requirement. We have to then take that and fit it into the confines of the procedure that's laid out under the state statute. Determinations that are, actually, if you read this, it looks very similar to the ordinance that we have proposed here. It's a section on determinations that are reviewable, a section on determinations that are not reviewable. Which municipalities are covered? We are. Municipal authority defined, persons aggrieved defined. Then a section that says you have to reduce the determination to writing. Portion that says somebody has to file a written or oral request for review of that once they've been provided a version of it in writing. Then a whole process for how it can be reviewed. And then an administrative appeal that goes beyond that initial review. And then a hearing on that. And then ultimately a final determination issued in writing within 20 days of the hearing. And then a provision that indicates that you can have it judicially reviewed beyond that. And then a section that says municipalities can opt out of this if they do so by a creation of an ordinance that establishes their own procedure. We do not have a universal appeals procedure in our ordinances. We have bits and pieces of ones for specific types of determinations, such as what we have with our property maintenance appeals right now. However, if somebody went through our property maintenance appeal procedure and didn't get the answer they wanted, it's highly likely that they could say, I additionally want to have my Chapter 68 rights. And we know that because it's happened. And I described this to you guys before, but I'm going to mention it again. I had to take a look at this chapter. I had to take a look at our process that had already occurred and say, how are we going to put together an administrative hearing on this now? We have to have a city employee who is a quote-unquote official who doesn't have any connection to the decision that's been made thus far. And we selected Corey because he doesn't have anything to do with the decisions that are coming out of the other department. We had to set a time and date, request a room, send notice to the other party, make sure that we had all our evidence in order. And then we had a hearing, and the person didn't show up. And then we had to have Corey issue a written determination on the basis of that hearing. The purpose of this is not to add another layer of government. It's to get rid of the nonsense of having to do something like that ever again. It's to ensure that when people do appeal things and they go through the procedure that we've created for all of the determinations that would be made by any department, that the determination that comes out of that appeal is final in the sense that their next step would be to go to the circuit court, not to say, oh, also Chapter 68, which sends us scrambling again because, again, odds are we probably didn't cover all the requirements in here with whatever exists for any particular type of determination right now. With regards to the municipal court, yes, if somebody is issued a citation, the procedure to appeal it is to go and contest it in municipal court. But you know, if somebody has a property maintenance violation, we don't issue them a ticket right away. I mean, we don't even issue them a service charge right away. We give them an opportunity to just correct it. And if somebody doesn't correct it, they get a service charge. Those are what are appealed under this. Now, if somebody did get a citation, if they've got repeated violations of the same thing, there's a chance they might be issued a citation in the municipal court. But that is a totally different procedure. But again, this is just to take our own procedures into our own hands, rather than to have a smattering of little appeal procedures scattered throughout our ordinances. A lot of determinations don't even have any appeal procedure, which certainly this would apply then. It's just a matter of taking control of our own procedures here. That's all this is. And I can understand and appreciate why everybody has been so engaged in discussing it. And I think it speaks highly of the council that you guys didn't just shrug and say, okay, the lawyer says it's a good idea, so we'll do it. But don't interpret it as being anything other than just establishing some basics so that we don't have kind of chaos in the event somebody wishes to appeal something beyond the committee.
And the case that the attorney's referencing is still not done. We've been dealing with this for probably going on 3 years now. Alder Jennings.
I'll just repeat that I think the thing we need to do is correct the underlying problems within the ordinance that people would feel compelled to challenge things to that extent. If we get through that, then maybe this is the appropriate direction. But to start here without correcting the other problems, I think is bad policy. Those are my comments.
Alderperson, with all due respect, if clear evidence of a violation were all it took to dissuade somebody from appealing it, I would have a lot less trials in municipal court.
Okay, any other discussion? Alder Nabel.
I'm still wondering why what we already have is not working. You may have had one of those, but does that mean then the whole system we have isn't worth what we were doing?
Well, again, I would speak to the much broader assortment of determinations that are made. You know, right now, suppose that somebody was, for whatever reason, denied a dog license, and there are standards you have to meet in order to get one, and they decided they wanted to appeal that. Well, we don't have anything in our ordinances really that says what would even happen, like what process, what we would even need to do, which is why we'd have to resort to this state statute at that point. And instead of just leaving us scrambling for answers in those types of situations, this would tell us we follow our ordinance and we have these people that would be the ones assigned to hear those appeals. Right now, we'd have to look around the building and find somebody who can serve as a hearing officer. And I think when you're doing things on an ad hoc basis, reacting to situations instead of just saying we can look to our policy and what we've established, I think that it doesn't. Even if you get a good outcome that's accurate based upon the underlying policies and rules, if I was the person appealing it wouldn't strike me as being all that sound. You had to choose someone on the fly to fill this role to make the decision on my case here. It doesn't feel professional, and it didn't really. We did it by the book. We handled it according to the law in a way that was permissible, but you should never have to do that stuff on the fly. Now, with regards to the process we have right now for property maintenance violations in particular before the committee, I think that it would not satisfy the requirements of Chapter 68 in the sense that the steps that lead up to it don't check all the boxes of the individual steps that are listed in that chapter. And the manner in which those items are heard is, I think, probably a bit too informal. It doesn't really look a lot like a hearing, so to speak. And moreover, we don't have a written determination issued upon, evaluation of the evidence that was brought forward at a hearing. It's more, here's what happened, here's a report, people can come in and comment on it, and then you just have a vote and you have the minutes. So I don't think that what we're doing right now does satisfy this. So we would be left having to still go back and take further steps of review process in order to satisfy that statute if we left it as the status quo.
Alder Nabel, did you have additional questions or comments?
Just confuses me because it's been done for how many years, and now it's...
Alder, it's difficult even for me to hear, and I know the microphone's kind of in the middle, but it's a little ways further away from you.
It's hard for me to understand. We've been doing this for years of having it through the council, and I would still look at this and saying, no matter what you're doing here, if you want to make an administrative group, we've talked about this before in the past, President Johnson brought that forward a long time ago, and it was shot down to having an administrative group of alders for discussions of other things, other items, and now we're looking at doing that now, and I still feel it needs to stay in with people that are alders.
Okay. Any other comments? Alder Morrow.
I have a comment. I understand what some stuff that Logan's going through, having worked in the correctional field, folks who appeal things who are blatantly wrong, but still go through the process and so on. And that's why there is a specific process for every little thing, is because so many people appeal things that are obviously wrong, but still want to fight it for whatever reason. With this board, the alders would also still be involved here. One of the things with the alders, with all the alders being involved, one thing that we can do is say yes or no to mayoral appointments. And I know in the past there have been several heated talks here about some of the appointments that the mayor has made, showing that the council really is involved and really does look at things. I mean, as I said, there's been heated talks about several appointments. So that does show that the council is involved in this. And I know from the past, it's hard to find folks who really want to be involved. With our lives getting busier and busier and busier, there's less and less people who really want to be involved. I know from the Planning Commission, one of the appointees there is in the real estate business, and he often does does also recluse himself from some of the developments that we have also had. And I know from the police and Police and Fire Commission, some of those appointees have also reclused themselves from specific decisions because they also did see a conflict. Part of the process of being involved with the city is being aware of what you can and cannot do. So I don't see any problem with having some citizens involved. I think it would be a good thing to try to get more people involved who may not want to go through and may not have the time to go through an election and be as involved as we are here. So I would be in favor of the ordinance as it's being presented.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then I'm just going to make a statement. I hope that we are beyond the appointment process, but I need to just say a few things. The appointments that I've recommended, all of them have had background information. You don't get appointment or reappointment background information because I assume that you know them. However, this day forward, we will have that reappointment background information included as well. And I know that to be true because that was a pet peeve of mine when I was on council. I wanted to see some background information. So I've included that with every appointment, new appointment. And it's never just my decision. I know it may seem like that because they are mayoral recommendations. However, every single appointment and reappointment gets vetted through our city staff and other resources if I need to. Director Karnowski met with an applicant today. I wanted his feedback. So none of these decisions are done just by me. And I agree that we would love to have more citizens involved. By changing the makeup, we've reduced the number, so that takes away a little bit. But just like a job application, we may have multiple very well qualified people for a given appointment. And based on those discussions with staff, I choose to bring forward the name that we think is the most qualified after vetting it through staff. So yes, you will have qualified people that don't get appointments, but I'd like to find appointments for people. And I just hope that's clear enough that these aren't just mayoral appointments. These are vetted, and then, of course, council has the ability to vet them again, if need be, ask questions, and you've done that. You've been very good about asking questions in regards to that, like tonight, and I apologize for the wording. It should have been reappointment. But if that's your hang-up, I hope we can get over that hump. With no further discussion, the motion is to reject the ordinance amendment as amended. If you are in favor of rejecting that ordinance, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to rejecting that ordinance, you will vote no. And the clerk will call the roll.
Morrow.
No.
Dalton.
No.
Dugan.
No.
Kneebone.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Zarazua.
No.
Nabel.
Yes.
Shore.
No.
Jennings.
Yes.
2-7.
2-7, the motion fails. I would be looking for another motion. Alder Shore,
Motion to approve.
as amended.
Yes.
Seconded by Dugan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Jennings.
It's amended. Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
Adopted 9-0 was amended.
9-0, that is adopted. Before we move to the next item, since there will be people watching this, if you are interested in serving on this committee, please contact my office. We look for a cover letter and a brief resume. Any alders that are interested, do the same, please. Let's see. Item number 10 is an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 13, Water and Sewerage, amending Section 13.17 to reflect new rates. President Johnson.
Motion to approve the ordinance amending the water and sewers charges.
Thank you. Do we have a second? seconded by Dalton. Discussion. Alder Dugan.
Would it be possible for our utilities director to speak a little bit on this? It's quite a change in rate, and I had a constituent last week, I think, call and talk about this. And for his benefit and others who are concerned too, if our utilities director could explain a little bit more why this is necessary and what they're getting for it. The constituent I have said, there's no stormwater here, and I have a lot of constituents that say that. It doesn't sit on the road. It doesn't, I don't need a swale or I don't need any stormwater, mediation. But that's not the whole story. That's what they see. And perhaps the utilities director could explain a little bit in more detail.
We'll get the director to talk about that. Director Lemke, in a minute or two, can you explain generally what this rate increase involves?
From here, would you like me up front?
I guess we'll probably have you come up front.
Okay.
It looks better on camera.
Sure.
He does.
All right, so briefly, what it sounded like you were referring to is mostly stormwater, but I'll touch on them both. Page 65 of your packet is where the ordinance amendment is that refers to stormwater, and it's really all in that first line under 3 rate changes. 5908 per year is the current ERU rate, and we're proposing to change that to 7031. That's the 19% increase. This is the first increase since the stormwater utility was created in 2013. That's a 2.7% increase per year, I believe. And the reason we didn't do it a little more gradually over the years, and it's starting now, is really because the need has come up in the last couple years. The city as a whole, which is a very good thing, is reconstructing far more infrastructure on an annual basis than we did and than we had planned to in 2013 or in 2012 when we were setting these rates. So this year we did a little over a mile of full reconstruct, and when we go back as recent as 2010, quarter mile, half mile was a really good year, right? So there's more infrastructure. Stormwater infrastructure, when you're reconstructing the urban core of the city, is the most expensive to reconstruct per foot. It's bigger, it's more expensive. An intersection will have a stormwater manhole and 4 catch basins and pipe going to all those and 4 more structures. And if you get into concrete pipe, you're talking about very expensive infrastructure, which is why it's important, because for the ratepayers of the city and the taxpayers of the city, same person, different pocket, right? It's important that as the streets that we know need reconstruction get picked, that we be able to reconstruct the utilities under them also, because that's the most value for the dollar being spent. And if we're going to stay on this schedule, on this pace, we need to do it all when we're able to do it all. So the biggest need in the stormwater side of things is the pace of the reconstruction that we're doing right now. That's the 19%. That's represented with that change, 5908 to 7031 per year. The other red below that is just extrapolating that out over whether you're single family, duplex, triplex. And if you want to talk about sewer rates real quick, I'd invite you to go to page 67. And this is a 4% increase. It's relatively small, kind of a maintenance shot, if you will. I'm expecting it to cover 2 years, so that'll be a 2% per year type adjustment, a little more expected and a little more what people are comfortable with, perhaps. And those are the rates. The rate changes there, and that is across the board to fixed rates and to variable rates. In other words, to the sewer portion of the meter charge and to the sewer portion of the volumetric consumption that goes along with how much water you actually use.
Does that help?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Director. Did we get a motion on this yet?
Yes, we did.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, if you are in favor of the motion, you'll vote yes. If if you are opposed, you'll vote no, and the clerk will call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
9-0 adopted.
9-0, that's adopted. Item number 11 is a resolution for a conditional use permit at 601 Michigan Avenue North for Century Insurance to construct a boutique hotel. We do have Alder Morrow. We'll allow you to go first.
Oh, I wanted to approve the motion for the conditional use permit for 601 Michigan Ave, north of Century Insurance, to construct a boutique hotel at whatever.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderperson Kneebone. We do have a representative from the Century Insurance Organization here if there are questions. Did you want to speak at all, sir?
No, thanks. Not unless there's significant opposition.
Thank you. Well, apparently we won't know that until the vote, but Alder Dugan?
I would like to ask a question. It's not significant, but objection, but somewhat.
Go ahead and ask your question, and if the representative would like to answer it, he may.
As I've said, I think at Plan Commission, I'm concerned that a relatively new building will be demolished, and a yet newer building will be put in its place. I'm concerned about why they had to do that. Why couldn't they have reused that building and remodeled it, made it bigger, that sort of thing. And I would be very interested to know what the answer to that might be.
Okay. You are under no obligation to answer that, sir. And I'm going to have to call you Eric because I can't read the last name.
Skill.
Okay.
Skill. Yes, Alderperson Dugan, thank you for your concern. And this was the same concern you brought up at the City Planning Commission. And, you know, we do appreciate that there's environmental concerns associated with tearing down a building that's not extremely old, but considering the difference in the new hotel that's being built, there really wasn't a way to repurpose this hotel. And we thought this footprint of the existing building was the best place for the new hotel to go. So we had to make the tough decision to, you know, get rid of that building and move on with the new one.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Chief Skiba.
Just to speak on behalf of the relationship that the city has with Century, I can speak to the fire department and police department regarding public safety. They are actually affording us the opportunity to use that facility to do training, not only for fire and rescue, but for law enforcement. And we really appreciate those opportunities. I understand that you're taking a relatively new building from your perspective, but that they reached out to us to allow us that opportunity speaks volumes, and the opportunities that rarely occur for us.
I appreciate that, Chief, and I know that we appreciate the ability to have a facility like that for some training, because those don't come along very often.
They're using it.
Any other comments? Alder Morrow.
I just wanted to make a comment that this again shows the commitment that Century Insurance has shown to our city. There are many companies here that claim that they support the city, but there are very few that actually take the time, the effort to really stand behind those words. As Chief Skiba had said, that what Century Insurance has done to help them, they also funded the new police dog as well after the police dog died. The city did not come to them hat in hand. They did not solicit funds. They just saw a need and they helped. They didn't have to be asked. As I said in the past, they also helped the city purchase a new plow. They didn't ask for a press release. They didn't ask for anything else. They saw a need that the city had, and they were there to also help. And I also wanted to add as well, this boutique hotel is going to be run by Century Insurance. It's going to be run by them. They're not going to farm that out to another vendor. So they will have a living wage. They will have Century Insurance benefits. Which I think is I think that's also telling as well.
Thank you very much. Alder Shore.
Thanks. While we are giving Century due credit as an outstanding corporate citizen, I know it's a point of pride with Century that when they do add to their facilities, that they don't request incentives, and that's one more thing that we should, I think, voice appreciation for.
Thank you. Any other comments? Alder Dugan.
Yeah, I understand. First of all, they are reusing the building if they're allowing police and fire to go in there before it's demolished. And I appreciate many things that Century has done here in the community, but I can't consider those when Century comes to us for our approval of a particular item or issue. I don't want to go and say, oh, they're a wonderful, corporate citizen. We have to give them. We should give them. We should be, compelled to do that. I can't go there. I take it, each situation as it comes, no matter who is behind it.
Thank you very much. Director Kanowski, anything to add? I'd ask that you come up to the lectern, please.
Sure. It's a real quick statement, so. I would just add that Century is a great corporate partner, and it's important that we recall that as we go through this. It's also important to know that the conditional use permit is for the new building exclusively. We cannot, within that conditional use permit, put on conditions of what they do with the old building. That is up to the property owner itself. So I really want to make sure that the council stays focused on the conditional use for the new facility. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Eric, I think we're probably good. If you are in favor of the motion, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Clerk will please call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Nay.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
8-1.
8-1, the motion is adopted. Resolution is passed. Item number 12 is a conditional use permit for 2501 Nabel Street for Realty Investments LLC to split their parcel on a land with mobile home park, and the parcel number is identified there. We do have a representative, Joe Fonte. If you would, do you have comments to make, or are you just here as a resource?
Only if there's a question.
Just as a resource. Okay, alderpersons, what are your wishes? Alder Dalton.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for 2501 Nebel Street.
Thank you. Seconded by Zarazua. Discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
I kind of heard that one, Alder Nabel. Sounds like you got a little something in the throat. We're good. That is adopted. Item number 13 is a resolution authorizing and providing for the sale and issuance of $1,675,000 of stormwater system revenue bonds, Series 2019, and all related details. We also have a similar resolution right below that. I will turn it over to the Comptroller Treasurer, who will introduce our guest.
Yes, so we have Greg Johnson from Ellers, who is our financial advisor, and he'll give us a rundown of the sale, which occurred today. We had some very favorable rates, which is a good thing, and he can take it away.
Thank you, Corey. Good evening. I'll speak first to the storm sewer revenue bonds. Just to recap the purpose of these bonds, this is to finance extensions and improvements to the city's stormwater system and to finance the construction of a utility storage garage. The number of bids we received this morning on this bond issue was 5. The winning bid was submitted by Baird out of Milwaukee with a true interest cost of 1.9824%. The total principal and interest over the life of the bonds came in $40,976 less than the presale estimate we provided to the City Council. The final par amount of the bond issue, we were able to reduce that due to the lower transactional costs. So the final amount is $1,600,000. So that is $75,000 less than the amount that was in your draft resolution. Finally, the stormwater utility did receive a first-time rating from Moody's Investors Service. It was a rating of A1, which is a good rating for a utility that's fairly new. As was mentioned earlier, the utility has just been in place since 2013, but that rating certainly paid benefits today in terms of this particular bond issue. So the action before you is the resolution for the $1,600,000 in stormwater revenue bonds. Next is the sewage system revenue bonds. The purpose of this issue wasn't financing any new projects, but was refunding or refinancing existing obligations of the wastewater sewer system. The total number of bids on this issue was 8. The winning bid was submitted by Hutchison Shockey out of Chicago. The true interest cost came in at 1.72%. The future value savings over the remaining life of these bonds from 2020 through 2030 came in at $430,112. The total principal and interest over the life of these bonds was approximately $3,406,000. That is $123,247 less than the estimate that was presented last month. The sewer utility has been rated in the past, also received a rating from Moody's Investor Services, and the rating for the wastewater utility was AA3. So there's a resolution on your agenda this evening. That's for the $2,975,000. Similar to the stormwater utility revenue bonds, we're able to downsize this issue once the final transactional expenses were known, so the par amount is $215,000 less than what was originally authorized, and that's reflected in the final resolutions that were distributed. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on either of these financings.
Do we have any questions? Okay. I noticed the expression on President Johnson's face as we were told the rates, and I know she understands how favorable those rates are.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
We'll have to take these separately. The first one is going to be the resolution authorizing and providing for the sale of those bonds for stormwater, Series 2019, in the amount of $1.6 million. Alder Dugan.
I move to do just that. Shall I read it?
That's okay. Motion to approve would be acceptable. Seconded by Alderperson Dalton. Discussion there? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
Approved 9-0.
9-0, the motion is approved. Item number 14 is a resolution authorizing and providing for the sale and issuance of the Sewerage Systems Revenue Refunding Bonds, Series 2019, and related details in the amount of $2.975 million. President Johnson.
It is with pleasure that I move to approve.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderperson Shore. Discussion there? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call that roll?
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
9-0. That is approved.
9-0, that's adopted. Item number 15 on our original agenda was pulled, so the amended agenda item that we have next is consideration of the second amendment to the development agreement with General Capital Acquisitions, LLC, and memorandum of that development agreement. Comptroller, anything to add here?
So this is basically what we had talked about in closed session last week. We'd be amending the development agreement to change their guarantee from a guaranteed value to a guaranteed tax payment amount, so that you know, if tax rates go up or down, they'd still have the same guaranteed amount to the city. And then the other major change would be if they do go over what they're required to have in terms of a minimum tax payment, we would return that to them. And then that is something that is new from the previous development agreement. And then they would refund us half of that at the end of 15 years.
Alderperson Jennings.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Seconded by President Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
Adopted 9-0.
9-0, that is adopted. Item number 17 is a development agreement with Lineage SCS, Service Cold Storage, LLC. Comptroller, anything to add there?
Sure. So in this, I know we've also talked about it in the past. So basically, this would be for any expansion that Lineage does on their new parcel, and we would provide them with a 50% pay-as-you-go incentive. So basically, if they make an expansion on that new parcel, we would give them half of their taxes back and then retain half for the TIF district for other projects within that district, and that is more favorable than our previous agreement with them, which was pay-go at 70%. So we are giving them 70% back on their existing agreement. So this was a concession, basically, that the city was able to get for this agreement.
Thank you. Alderperson Nabel.
Could you explain if they expand on the property that they already have, are we now still going to give them 50% or 70%?
Okay, so the agreement that we already have with them for their existing parcel is still in effect, so that 70% does still apply for the existing parcel. So it would just be once they get onto the new parcel, which, I know that there is a little bit of distance there between their existing facility and the property line as they go to the east, but it would only be for their new parcel that would be the 50%.
Okay. Alderpersons, what are your wishes? President Johnson.
Motion to approve the development agreement.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderperson Shore. Discussion there. Alder Dalton.
I will not be supporting this developer agreement tonight, and I would urge my colleagues to consider also property taxes are a flat tax, which means they're pretty much equally applied to property owners. And as we continue to provide financial incentives to some of our largest businesses, we push that further and further towards a regressive tax, placing the burden, the financial burden of in maintaining our infrastructure and all the other costs of the city on our single-family homeowners. And furthermore, for a business who's already getting a financial incentive for their upstart, I really see no necessity to provide a further incentive as they are expanding, especially when we have basically nothing to offer small expanding businesses who provide to our community as well.
Thank you. Alder Dugan.
I have to echo somewhat what Alder Dalton just said. I had a conversation today with a constituent who had the same perspective, for good reason, I think. Just wanted to put that in.
Thank you. Director Karnowski, can you step to the lectern, please, and let us know, I don't believe there's any additional infrastructure needs, and as a requirement of any business seeking incentive, there is a but-for test, correct?
Correct. The document that Lineage had provided to us was included in the November closed session in Finance, justifying their but-for. I do apologize, that was not included in this packet that fell through my office. Again, I apologize. It's really important to recall that with the pay-as-you-go incentive, the only way the developer receives any type of financial assistance from the city through tax increment finance is if they perform, i.e. build. As alluded to earlier, the existing parcel, they could expand on that parcel at any time and still receive 70% of their new increment back through the development incentive that was previously approved in, I believe, 2013. The 13 acres to the east of the existing parcel is where the 50%, there's a map within your, within the agenda packet here that you could refer to. Lineage is also purchasing that, hopefully this week, for close to $600,000, which helps float the TIF. Additionally, the city, through the multimodal local supplement grant, the MLS grant that we recently applied for, we would be responsible for 10% of any rail spurs if we were to receive the $3 million request that we had included in that grant. And so any expansion within this TIF district would help offset those infrastructure needs, whether it be the rail spur, future roadways, water, sewer, things of that nature. So again, I love pay-as-you-go TIF because you have to perform in order to get the incentive. There is no upfront incentive anymore. We're past that point with Lineage. So, staff's recommendation is, of course, to support that, this development agreement. It will possibly spur further economic development within the East Park Commerce Center. So.
Thank you very much. Alder Morrow?
So from what you also said, if we denied this, they would just still be they'd still be under the old agreement of 70/30. Is that correct?
Within the existing parcel, my inclination would be if this would not be passed, they would also not purchase the 13-acre parcel that the city currently owns for future expansion to the east.
That's the one that they were going to pay for $600,000?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director while he's up here? Thank you, Director. We have a motion to approve. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
No.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
No.
7-2 approved.
7-2, that is adopted. Item number 18 is a closed session. Before we do that, I'd like to go over a few things because we do have two candidates here for the 10th District, which we will be considering after our deliberation in closed session and possible action in open session in that regard. So we're going to ask everyone to step out in the hall. I'd ask the candidates to please remain, of course. You don't have to, but I think it would be in your best interest to remain. And we will call you in after the closed session item and bring you back in here and continue on with our agenda. So we have an agenda item to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub E and 19.85 sub 1 sub G for deliberation and negotiating the purchase of public properties, et cetera, for consideration on a real estate purchase contract between the City of Stevens Point and the Fox on Main LLC to acquire the property at 1116 Main Street. Do we have a motion to go into closed session? Moved by Nabel, seconded by Dugan. Any discussion there? And clerk, please call the roll.
Jennings.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Dalton.
No.
Morrow.
Aye.
8-1.
8-1, we are in closed session. We are back on video, so we are back in open session for consideration on the previous closed session matter. Alderperson, or President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase agreement as discussed. The purchase agreement for the Fox Theater as discussed in closed session.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Alderperson Nabel. Discussion there? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Morrow.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
Dugan.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Nabel.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Jennings.
Aye.
9-0 approved.
9-0, that is approved. Item number 20 takes us into our appointment of a District 10 candidate to serve out the rest of the term. The way we'll have this run, barring any objections, is we will have both of the candidates sit at these forward tables, and the clerk has a coin. We will have one of the candidates choose heads or tails, and the winner will get to choose whether they go first or their opponent goes first. You will each have 5 minutes to present your case, at which point, after both candidates are done, the alders will have the opportunity to ask questions of you. And after that's done, we will have a vote. The vote is by open ballot. And the alders will choose their candidates. If they're, let's see, we've got 9, so we're good. Majority winner will become the new 10th District appointee. Alder Shore, question about the process.
Yes, so
Why do we have 2?
I see.
Hang on. We'll get there. Do we have it figured out?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Nabel won the toss. He chose to defer to the second person. So.
Okay. Choose your seats, please, and then you can begin after I answer Alder Shore's question. So we printed multiple ballots because had Alder Slawinski been able to attend, there was the possibility of a tie. So we just are being prepared. There is a very low possibility of having a tie with 9.
My question has to do with secret ballot versus, voting publicly.
It's my understanding, and the city attorney can comment on this, that votes of this nature are public ballot.
Oh, okay, yeah. So.
Make sense?
Why do I need these?
You'll write the name of the candidate that you wish to be the 10th
and it will be
district
announced
alderperson.
because...
and then the clerk, along with the comptroller treasurer, will count those ballots.
Thank you very much. Right.
All right, are we clear on that one?
Yep.
Okay, then Keely Fisher, I believe you are first. You can use the microphone at the table, or you can use the lectern if you choose. Your call.
Thank you, Mayor Wiesa and members of the council. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Keely Fischler, and I appreciate the opportunity to express my interest in serving on City Council and representing the 10th District. I first became curious about running for City Council last spring after I volunteered for a historical society event at the Heritage Park in Plover. After that event, I was inspired to learn more about city government. There happened to be an opening on the Bicycle Pedestrian Street Safety Commission, and I immediately applied for it. That experience has been really helpful to me. I've learned more about budget challenges and planning timelines when it comes to streets and infrastructure. I've also had the opportunity to meet staff members and learn more about their roles and responsibilities, as well as learning rules and procedures for governing bodies. I'd like to share a little about my background and explain why I would like to serve the 10th District and why I believe that I can effectively step into this interim position. My daughter attends McKinley Elementary School, and my husband manages the University of Wisconsin-Hancock Research Station. I work from home as an account manager for a company called Natus Neurology. I sell neurology supplies to hospital systems, small practices, and clinics. I'm responsible for my own productivity and achieving my sales goals. My job entails interacting with physicians, purchasing departments, technicians, finance departments, customer service and sales representatives on a daily basis. A lot of my job is about solving problems and communicating with many different people. One of my strengths is my ability to break down problems into smaller, more manageable pieces and discuss them in a way that avoids misunderstanding and conflict. Because I work from home, my schedule is flexible, and I would be able to attend regularly scheduled meetings and special meetings that might arise over the next few months. I've lived in the 10th District for almost 5 years and am familiar with some of the opportunities and challenges we face in this area. As of December 1st, I've been going door to door collecting signatures to put my name on the ballot for the spring election. This morning, I turned in my nomination papers to the city clerk with a maximum of 40 signatures, and all 40 checked out. Going door to door has given me the opportunity to have important conversations with neighbors and learn about some of their concerns. So far, the experience has been really positive, and people have been very supportive. Many people know me as the friendly face that waves at them while I walk my big chocolate lab around the neighborhood. I want to be the kind of representative that is approachable and will take the time to listen, understand issues, and help neighbors find solutions to concerns or problems they need help with. I look forward to visiting more people in the months leading up to the spring election and learning more about the many other citizens that live in my district. I care about Stevens Point and would be honored to serve the 10th District. I feel really excited about the opportunity to do more for our community and look forward to the challenge. I hope you will consider me for this interim position. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Corey Nagel.
Thank you, Mayor Wiesa. Thank you, members of the council. My name is Corey Nagel, and I have lived in the 10th District for the past 7 years. I am a lifelong resident of Stevens Point, and I have a lot of memories here. I remember as a kid walking, or running, I should say, through the Center Point Mall when it was packed during Christmas shopping time. And I also can remember the dairy farms where the Crossroad Commons and the business park now exist. I've seen a lot of changes in this town over the course of my life here. I've attended all the local schools. I'm a SPASH graduate. I've also graduated from UWSP in 2010. I am a high school social studies teacher. I have a very strong background in the role of government, the decisions that are made here, and the impact on the people that it has. I'm also a union leader, and I understand very much how listening to your constituents and advocating for change, even when the odds are so stacked against you, can make a difference. I'm very pleased, maybe this isn't the appropriate setting, but our union just won recertification today for the first time in 5 years, and I'm very, very proud of that. I am running because I want to ensure that my children, I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old, have the same excellent experience that I've had in this town. Stevens Point has excellent schools. My oldest attends McKinley as well. I'm very proud of that school. It had the highest report card recently released by DPI, significantly exceeds expectations. For a school district that has a 56% free and reduced lunch rate, that is absolutely outstanding. Hats off to the people at McKinley. The city has excellent services, recreational opportunities. I was a soccer player growing up, not a traditional sport, at least in the 1990s, but I very much enjoy the opportunities that were provided in this community. My core guiding principles are pretty simple. I adhere to the Wisconsin idea and the progressive roots that have made this state great, and a model for this country for the past 100 years. One of my heroes is Robert La Follette. I believe that man was one of the best people that this state has ever had. He is one of my role models. And I very much appreciate the progressives that set the tone in this state over 100 years ago. Using scientific reasoning, relying on recommendations of trained staff, being an advocate for the common good of the people of District 10 will be my guiding principles. And thank you very much for this council's time and consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderpersons, any questions of the candidates? And candidates, you can use the microphones at your tables to respond. Alder Dalton?
My first question is for candidate Nagel. On your resume, you articulate that you had some coaching background. I'm wondering if you are currently in those positions and if you have foresee any Monday night conflicts.
I am not currently coaching. I stepped aside from those roles. So no. My most recent position was as the varsity soccer coach for the school that I coach at. That team had state title aspirations. They were a game away from state, and I did not feel like I could put in every day's worth of time living in this community, working in another community with an 8-month-old. I do feel like I have time for this position. It's local. I can tell you, being a varsity coach, even for soccer, I know that's not like the cool sport. You know, it's not football. There's not hundreds of people there. It's a huge time commitment. So I currently am not coaching. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Jennings, and then we'll go back to Alder Morrow.
This question is for Mr. Nagel. Is the alder position a partisan position?
Absolutely not.
Therefore, I'm sort of curious about your application or your cover letter that draws attention to your union work. And I'm not taking a position on unions or not, but I probably don't need to tell you that that has become a very divisive issue in our state. Governor Walker, that was one of his first moves, is to get rid of unions. So I'm sort of, since alders are nonpartisan, and also given the comments you've just made, I'm sort of wondering why you've chosen to lay out sort of a partisan position.
My disclosure as a union leader, this is part of who I am. I am an advocate for people. And I wanted to highlight that on this resume to say that I am willing to fight for the people of my district for things that they want and believe in. I understand the sentiments that might seem partisan, but that is why I chose to put that on there.
Okay. Alder Morrow.
Older
Microphone, please.
She already stole my...
Oh, she got your question ready? Any other questions from any of the alders?
I'd already highlighted it here, and she looked on my form, and she stole it.
Fair enough. Alder Shore.
That was my question.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have a sort of a SWOT analysis question on the, sort of the T, or maybe threat isn't the right word, but if you were to home in on what you see.
Alderperson, are you directing it to both candidates?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
This is a question for both. Sorry for not being clear on that. How you would describe the greatest challenge to our community, right? So looking at the issues that the council deals with, the responsibilities we have, what would you point to as, you know, a kind of front of mind concern, you know, dealing with that agenda?
I would direct that to candidate Fischler first.
Excuse me, I'm trying not to get a cold. One of the greatest challenges that I've seen, I've watched a lot of videos in regards to, you know, the city and the council meetings. And I recently watched the one from October 29th, the finance meeting there. And I know that there's some challenges to be met with the budget, and that in Wisconsin, we have a policy that the state of Wisconsin has a policy that limits annual tax increases to net new construction. And the Comptroller Treasurer Corey Laddick indicated in that meeting that in order to meet the annual inflationary increases, we would need to meet 2.37% net new construction every year. And that amounts to over $50 million in net new construction every year. I know he had also mentioned that in 2019 we had over 70 million in new net construction, but you can see how duplicating this year after year might be a challenge.
Okay. Candidate Nagel.
I would say that there's a couple issues that I would have. I think the first is affordable housing. There are two things that I've seen recently in this community. One are apartments being built, and one are houses that are $300,000 plus. There is absolutely no middle ground for somebody coming out of college like myself was 7-8 years ago. My wife and I are fortunate that we had parents who set aside for us. For people who aren't in our shoes, I think that we need to be doing more to bridge that gap. I've seen in my neighborhood where housing gets flipped from perhaps somebody who was neglectful, perhaps couldn't take care of their property anymore, a younger person moves in, and it's like a brand new house just popped up on your block. That type of reinvestment into neighborhoods can totally change the dynamic of the neighborhood, but I think that we need to be doing more to bridge that gap. There's been a lot of discussion, at least from people that I talk to, about the city's finances and its debt. I'm not really sure exactly where we're at on that. I would like to know more about that. But in regard, I mean, if I had to pick one issue, I would say it was the affordable housing, especially that bridging that gap with the first-time home buyer.
Thank you. Alder Dalton, you had your hand up again?
Yes. This question is
We'll
for
go back to Alder Jennings.
both candidates, and I had a similar thought process when we went through this earlier this year, is that we're appointing to fill a seat in the ideas you're representing, at least in some faction, the people of yours. So would be, if you guys have anything more to say about your process of reaching out to neighbors and knocking on doors or talking, having direct conversations with the very people that you represented. I know I saw 3 letters from Corey and then a few references from, and you at least weren't able to persuade anyone to stay here until 9 o'clock at night on your behalf.
It's not quite 9. Candidate Nagel, we will start with you, and then we'll move to candidate Fischler.
I am also going door to door, reaching out to my neighbors. Some of them are actually knocking on my door, wanting an audience with me. I live next to some people who have been in this town a long time and have been active in politics, and they really want to talk to me. But also people on my block, some of them that I hadn't necessarily had interactions with before. We've seen each other, we've waved, and getting to know my neighbors better has been a really powerful experience. I think when neighbors know each other, we're not putting up fences and we're not hiding in our houses, that just creates a stronger community. I'd like to reach out to more of the businesses. I know that the Southside Business Association, I'm not sure what their level of engagement is at this time, but I would like to reach out to them. The McDill Pond District, they have a group, people that I will eventually be making contact with here. But I've also been going door to door and reaching out to people and plan on making more connections.
Thank you. And candidate Fischler?
So I just want to make sure I understand the question, that you're just looking for more information on what we've been doing in terms of reaching out to our candidates? Or, I'm sorry, reaching out to our
I know you articulated something in your statement, but if you had any other comments on your process for reaching out to constituents.
Sure. Well, I let people know when I would knock on their doors that when they see me walking my dog, they are allowed to talk to me. So, that I want to be very approachable in terms of, letting constituents know and people of our district know that when they do see me, they can talk to me. It's okay. I also know that we're part of a lake district, and I have a neighbor. I wasn't able to attend that last meeting, but I have a neighbor who actually went to it, and we discussed notes and went over all of that information in terms of, I know that they were looking at some money that would be coming out of the homeowners. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of the right words here, but in terms of more money that they would have to pay for the automatic locks that would be going in to adjust the levels on the channel.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to people who haven't spoken yet, but I did promise Alder Jennings I'd come back there, so we'll go to Alder Jennings, then President Johnson, then Alder Nebo.
So this is to both candidates. In April, the 10th district gets to decide who their representative will be, and you both get to campaign for that. But tonight, this council needs to decide who the best person is to step into a temporary position, and that's what we are deciding. So in my view, we need to make this decision based on who is most prepared right now to be in that position. And Ms. Fischler has already commented on being on committee, and maybe you can elaborate more, but I'm not getting a sense from Mr. Nagel in terms of how are you exactly prepared for right now, not 6 months from now.
Right. So like I said, I hold a Wisconsin teaching degree. I teach U.S. history. I teach economics. I teach AP U.S. history. I've taught government. I have a strong understanding of how government works, the role that government plays in economics, the history of our town, of our state, of our nation. I mean, this is common counsel, but I think that my teaching background, my educational background, this is something that I do every single day, that I talk about every single day.
So have you been attending council meetings? Or
I have been reading agendas. I've been reading minutes. I have not been in attendance, but listen, understanding, I'll just go back to my union role. I understand state statutes. I understand municipal law. A lot of it still applies. There's crossover to schools. So I have a pretty strong understanding of what goes on here. Maybe not like really specific things, but in a general sense, I don't have any. If I didn't think that I was ready to step in at this time, I would not be here, and I would be deferring or campaigning or waiting until the spring.
Candidate Fischler, anything to add?
Well, I've been preparing for this for a while. Like I said, in my introductory, that since spring I had an interest. Actually, I've had an interest in local government for a long time. I may not have all of the degrees to say that, but I believe that I truly have a passion to learn more. I really love learning more about things I don't know, and there's a lot to learn here. I know that, in terms of ordinances, city ordinances and things like that, I've looked them over. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And then just hearing about ordinances tonight, obviously. I spend a lot of time on the city website doing as much as I can to learn as much as I can, and have also been talking to people in my district. I've had conversations before submitting my nomination papers with actual alderpersons to make sure I understand exactly what's required and the time commitments that are required to serve in my district. So I guess in a nutshell, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been putting forth the effort and doing what's necessary to make sure that I'm prepared not just for today, but for when I'm actually campaigning and making sure that I'm trying to get our votes for the district. I have to earn those. They don't just come easily. My name might be on the ballot officially now, but that's meaningless if I'm not going out there and backing that up.
Okay, thank you. President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, candidates. We have a really difficult challenge because we have two really great candidates. I just got done hiring 3 people, and I can tell you this is a better problem to have than having no great options to choose from. So ultimately, I was able to fill those positions. But this is something I always ask people I hire. And it has nothing to do with the work they'll be doing. It helps me see into who they are. And the question is, would you rather be respected or liked, and why?
And I believe candidate Fischler goes first this time.
I would rather be respected because that means that I'm holding true to my values. And even though, like, for example, I might have to vote in a way that, deals with my honesty and integrity, and I can't vote against that. So I guess that would be why I would prefer to be respected rather than liked.
Okay. Candidate Nagel?
Absolutely respected. I have to have difficult conversations with my employer at times, and I know that they respect me. They don't always necessarily like what I have to say.
Been there.
But they know that I'm going to come in and tell it to them straight as I see it, and I'm going to do it respectfully, but I'm going to do it to say, this is why we're here, this is the problem, this is what we need to do. Let's talk about solutions. Where's the remedy? Whether they like me or not is irrelevant. Okay? I have a role. Same thing with my students. My students respect me. That's a whole lot better than if they like me. Because in my experience with teachers, the teachers that are liked oftentimes are the ones that are getting run over. The teachers that are respected have a classroom that is well run, it's well organized, there's learning, and whether you want to give me your senior picture or send me a Christmas card or add me on Facebook after you graduate, those things are nice, but I don't need those things. And I don't need my supervisor or my principal or my superintendent to come down and pat me on the back. It's not what it's about for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Kneebone.
To the candidates, thank you both for putting yourselves through this. In the last 4 or 5 years, this for both again, what do you think were the best changes you've seen in the city and the worst, or perhaps what you think wasn't such a good change? I don't know who gets to go first.
Candidate Nagel, you go first this time.
Well, I'll tell you that the best change that I've seen, it was somewhat controversial, was the roundabout on the north side of town by the Century Building. I happen to really like roundabouts, and the main reason is that very rarely does anybody actually die at a roundabout. And we've had that happen in this town. I can think of 2 instances. One happened in District 10 about 15 years ago where a police officer ran a red light, T-boned a girl who was my age, and she was killed. Another one, the corner of Burlesky, or at the intersection of Burlesky and HH, when there were stop signs. There's now lights there. And if there had been roundabouts there, those people would still be alive. And so it took some time to get used to, but roundabouts they're so much more economical. They're so much, greener. There's less wear and tear on your car. I don't know how many other people would say that they're excited about a roundabout, but I wish that we would have more of those. I think that they're much, much better for the city. In terms of worst, in 2011, there was a referendum for the downtown that I voted for under the assumption that the Fox Theater would be reopened. And I think it's too bad that didn't end up happening. I understand why, and I'm glad that the city is taking control of that, but I would have really liked to have seen that building renovated, refurnished, and reopened. I think that would have been cool. Just for some context, that building hasn't been open in my lifetime. And I would have liked to have experienced an old-style movie theater. With the mall gone, I thought, well, maybe we'll get some live entertainment in there. Something, a nice downtown experience, and you can go out to eat, and you can go out to have a drink, and you can go see live entertainment. I think it's kind of sad that I don't get to experience that, whereas previous generations had.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Fischler.
Best and worst changes. I guess I don't have a lot of, what do I want to say? Like, I don't think that there are any worst changes or best changes. I don't know that makes any sense, but I think that all the decisions that council make is difficult, especially with big changes. And change is really hard for people too. Nobody likes change. There's always going to be people that don't like it. There are always going to be people who love it, or there's going to be people who it doesn't matter to them. But I think the biggest thing is that, we keep moving forward as a city. And I think that's the most important thing. Because if we would stay the same, we'd still have logs in the Wisconsin River. We'd be a logging town and wouldn't have internet. So, I think change is extremely important, and it's just part of how a city is run. I don't know that there are any good or bad things about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Alder Shore.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a question. It's just to echo earlier comments that we do have a tough choice this evening. I'm feeling a flashback to the last time that we decided on the seat. Very strong candidates. Sorry, now I made her blush. And again, echo the appreciation, even though you're putting us in a difficult spot.
Great. Thank you all very much. Alder Dugan, another question?
Yeah, it just came to mind. One of the reasons I ran for council about 4 years ago was to give constituents more voice, I think. We didn't have that in the past in my district, as far as I could tell. And so I think that was one of my biggest priorities, was to really do a lot of communication with people in my district. And I've gotten hundreds of emails, or if not more, and I continue with letters and phone calls, and so I get a lot of that, and that's good. However, how might you handle this? I mean, I don't know if you could even discuss it, but it took me a while to figure it out. There are things people want, and they tell you that they want them, and they'll tell you why. This is the way it is in front of my house. You know, you've got to stand up for this for me. And then I feel compelled to do the research, to talk to the staff, and I find out it's probably the other way, and I'll vote the other way. And I've done that more than once. And you're not always liked. But is there anything that comes to mind to either of you two as to how you might handle that? That's probably been the biggest surprise for me.
Okay. Candidate Fischler, you go first this time.
Well, the city is representative government, so I know that I not only represent my district, but I would also be representing the city. There are times where my vote might not align with those in my district, and I completely understand that. The other thing is that I'm also open to having a conversation with some of the loudest voices in my district if they disagree with the way I voted. I'm always open to discussion and helping them understand, if possible, you know, explaining why I voted the way I have.
Okay.
Let me just give you an example, if you will. I had a situation where we had some meet and confer sessions in the district that I work in, and we were able to get some dollars for people at the end of the pay scale. And I go back to that group, and I'm thinking, they're gonna love it. We got more money. And they just erupted because it wasn't how they wanted it applied. And so I learned a valuable lesson there, that be very sure when you advocate for things that you think that people want, that it's what they want. But also having to tell people sometimes, I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen.
That's right. Yeah.
I would like to start holding some listening sessions in District 10.
I did that ad nauseum.
and that's fine. I have no problem talking to people, having that dialogue. With both of us, regardless of the outcome tonight. I think that those things are important. Our district has, for the most part, looking back at the electoral history, mostly run unopposed for most of it, so we haven't really, I know the two previous aldermen, one of them's my neighbor. I had a few interactions with Mike, and they were both very accessible. But I don't know how much dialogue we really had as a community or as a district in what are the concerns and how do we address them and what's realistic and what's not. I'll just give you an example of something that I've already had to tell people. It's not going to happen. There's a railroad track that runs parallel to Minnesota. The train comes through, blows its horn. They just lay on that thing all the way down the track. At 2 o'clock in the morning, people wake up. There's nothing we can do about it because the railroad controls the crossing. It's not busy enough to get lights. Fighting the railroad has been an uphill battle for all governments. And this cut.
We know that.
That is true. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Guess I'm done.
Did we get both of them? I think we did. Okay, sorry, I kind of lost track. Alder Zarazua.
I just, as the person that was doing this last, thank you for your interest in stepping up to represent your districts. And I don't want to ask any questions because I know the microscope you're under right now. But I just wanted to say thank you for being here. And I'm glad that there's competition and interest in joining the group of local government nerds.
Thank you. I think we are about ready. I want to thank both of the candidates. As we mentioned earlier, there are times where we get people that are very well qualified, and we have, in this case, two, I think, well-qualified candidates. Yeah. Council, this decision is yours now. You are going to choose who represents the 10th district for the next couple of months through the April election. Ironically, the only people that don't have a say are the people of the 10th District. So you have a heavy, heavy burden to bear. What I would ask is that you write down your choice for the representative of the 10th District to fill in the interim, and we'll have the clerk collect those ballots, and the clerk, under close scrutiny by the comptroller treasurer, will verbally count those ballots.
Where's Chief Skillet?
Yeah, where is he when you need him?
Just in case.
Again, candidates, I want to thank you for putting yourself out there. It takes a special person, and I know you both genuinely care about the neighborhood you live in and the city in general, so thank you for doing that.
Next, we have to appoint committees, and then we have to have a public protection meeting.
It's worse when you see the city.
Name a chair.
Oh, yeah,
Vice
yeah,
chair.
that makes sense.
We have them all?
That's tonight.
All mine.
I have all 9. I would ask that you use the lectern and read them aloud.
Oh, well, sure, I'll do it. Oh, no, I'm on the other one, too.
Nervous for them.
It's easy. There anyway.
And Comptroller Treasurer, you affirm that what the clerk is reading is correct?
So,
Please.
District 5, Keely Fischler. District 3, Fischler.
Okay, so it's 2 votes Fischler.
District 1, Fischler.
Okay.
District 8, Nagel.
Okay, so 3 Fischler, 1 Nagel.
District 11, Nagel.
Okay, so 3 Fischler, 2 Nagel.
District 4, Fischler.
Okay, 4 Fischler, 2 Nagel.
District 9, Nagel.
Okay, 4 Fischler, 3 Nagel.
District 2, Fischler.
Okay, 5 Fischler, 3 Nagel.
And District 7, Nagel.
Okay, so the final vote then would be 5 for Keely Fischler and 4 for Corey Nagel. Really close. Very close.
Very close, and rightfully so.
That's what
So
happened the last
congratulations, Alderperson-elect Fischler, and best of luck to both of you in the spring elections. Alderperson-elect Fischler, we have the need for you to come down to City Hall tomorrow to get sworn in, and the clerk will arrange that with you. We have some additional action items tonight. However, since you are not yet sworn in, you are not able to vote on those. However, when we have the Special Public Protection Committee meeting, you would be eligible to be nominated and serve as the committee vice chair, should the committee decide to do that. So, and then I would ask that you stop by my office as well. We have a few things that we need to take care of orientation-wise. Okay, thank you, alderpersons. And the next item on the agenda, because this is a fill-in position, we have already appointed someone to fill the former alder's position on the, it was Redevelopment Authority, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot.
Yes.
That's done already, so we're covered there. Alderperson Kneebone's got that. I just couldn't remember what it was. So we are seeking, my recommendation would be to appoint Alder-elect Fischler to the empty seats that Alder Phillips had left, which would include Public Protection, Finance, and then the Alderperson Liaison to the McDill Lake District Association. That's my recommendation. Alder Morrow? Moved. Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Alderperson Dalton. Discussion? We can do this on a voice vote, right? Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those appointments will take place tomorrow on those various committees. With that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 9:16.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.